Hi, I'm Laura Atkinson, and today I'm coming to you not only as one of the singers of the octet here at Second Pres Church in Louisville, but also in my official capacity as a classical music radio host. I am one of the announcers here in town at 90.5 WUOL. One of my passions is sharing stories and anecdotes about music and composers, and Jim and I wanted to have that opportunity to do this for our Kaleidoscope concert that's coming up. It's going to be an interesting program with lots of diversity of music. You'll hear from a lot of our octet singers as well as local musicians and local artists, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I want to tell you a little bit about these pieces. We get to start the program with a little bit of levity, one of William Bolcom's many cabaret songs. In this one in particular, we catch a glimpse of a character, perhaps a singer, who might have, shall we say, an inflated sense of self. What begins with a police officer declaring love moves into eventually an entire town becoming infatuated with this woman, or at least that's how she perceives it. Lori will provide us with a bit of fun in Amour. Perhaps one of the darkest and most complicated characters that Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart ever brought to life is that of Don Giovanni. In the opera, we see some truly sociopathic behavior from this man, which, beyond just the normal womanizing that he did his entire life, includes sexual assault and even murder. Mozart likely wanted to prove a moral point by setting this story to music, and while the Don is certainly brought to justice at the end of the opera, he descends into a fiery pit of hell, there is still depth and humanity in the character. The aria that we'll hear from Jim singing the role of the Don in the program is the moment that we see the Don's true human nature more than any other moment throughout the opera. It's the only time we see honesty and sincerity in the character, and this is the aria where he's really confessing what he wants more than anything in life, which is to be loved unconditionally. The beauty and the simplicity of this music that is paired with this man, who is essentially a villain, really shows the true genius of Mozart. We'll have another brilliant moment of pause and reflection in Jason's song by Bach, but this time it comes from a much different type of story. We here at Second Pres have just journeyed together through the darkness of Holy Week. Jason's piece, Betrachte meine Seele, comes from one of the most glorious depictions of those difficult days leading up to Jesus' resurrection, the St. John Passion. This is one of the most dramatic and gritty works that Bach ever composed, and it's a real mirror to the suffering we humans here on earth cause each other, and also brought to Jesus while he shared his time and space with us here. In the middle of chaotic and challenging music, the bass soloist steps up to sing a simple arioso, meaning the song isn't even as long or as complicated as a normal aria. We also know that Bach wanted this moment to be so special and so sweet because of what instruments he used. Out of nowhere, the lute and viola d'amores play, and this is the only moment in 2 hours of music in which he uses these instruments. For this concert, you'll hear those instrumental parts played on the piano, but you'll still get the sense of this serene and sublime and holy moment. You might be surprised to learn that it was Alexander Borodin, one of the great Russian 5 composers, who wrote the music for the 1953 musical Kismet, though he didn't know it. He had already been dead for over 60 years when American screenwriters decided to adapt his music into a musical. They wanted something exotic sounding with beautiful and catchy tunes, and they found that they didn't need to look further than the music of that Russian composer of the past. You'll hear a few of those hints at the motherland when Russ sings The Olive Tree from Kismet. One of Ralph Vaughan Williams' most loved skills as a composer was his ability to evoke the serene and pastoral peace of the English countryside. There's always something lush and nostalgic about his music when he takes his listeners on this particular journey out of the chaos of the city. And the song that you will hear Jill sing on this concert does exactly that so beautifully. There's almost a blissful sense of people and nature blending together, and it's experienced through the eyes of two lovers lying in the long, fresh grass. Another song that talks about the human blissful experience will be sung by Krista and Ronaldo Hahn's Fettgeland, though this music expresses that sentiment in a bit more of a tongue-in-cheek way. Hahn based this music on the poem of Paul Verlaine, a French symbolist poet who crossed paths with Hahn. In it, Verlaine talks about the courtly exchanges between elegant ladies and cavaliers, and in a very French way, there is a cheeky reference to what those pairs might be doing under the moonlight. The composer Florence Price has had a bit of a renaissance in the past few years, and I am really looking forward to singing some of her songs on this program. For many years, Price was not a household name in the classical music world. It's no question it likely had to do with the fact that she was Black and a woman composer, but the story is actually a bit more complicated than that. Many of her compositions were lost for years and years following her death, and it wasn't until new homeowners of her summer home in the south of Chicago found boxes and boxes of her works hidden away. This was in 2009, and some of those manuscripts are still being published today. There's often an incredibly sweet and intimate quality to Price's music, and you'll hear that in the songs on this program. I'm always particularly moved by the first song on this set. It's called To My Little Son. In it, the singer sings to the chubby baby face of her little boy and wonders if she'll be able to remember that sweet baby face when the child is grown into adulthood. And then, in a moment of time travel, Price takes us to the time when the mother or the singer is looking at her adult child and wondering if she can still trace the images of that baby in that man's face. There's something just so sweet about this music, and the song became even more heartbreaking to me when I learned that Price had an infant who died, a son named Thomas Jr. We'll have the pleasure of hearing both of our octet tenors, Ricky and Kenneth, singing truly touching songs of farewell on the program. Ricky has a piece by Irving Berlin, one of the best love songwriters of the past century, who often wrote from his own place of sadness. He married his wife Dorothy, and only to lose her about 6 months after their marriage to typhoid fever. You can trace the sadness in his writing in the years that followed her death. Ricky's song, What'll I Do, was written 20 years later, but it still maintains the grief that Berlin must have been feeling. The song was always a hit for Berlin, but it became incredibly popular late in his life when Nat King Cole and Frank Sinatra recorded the piece. Kenneth also sings a sweet declaration of love in a song that has become a favorite encore of singers in When I Have Sung My Songs. And of course, no Kaleidoscope concert would be complete without the rousing group number to finish off the program. You'll hear the full complement of singers in the Gondoliers Chorus. I won't tell you the whole complicated story of the Gilbert and Sullivan operetta because I'm sure that, no matter what, you'll have just as much fun with it as we do. So we'll look forward to seeing you here at Second Presbyterian Church this Sunday afternoon. That's April 23rd at 3 o'clock. The concert is free. Please bring your friends and your family. Every year we take an offering in order to help support the ministries of our church. And this year, the offering for our Kaleidoscope program will be going to South Louisville Community Ministries. You can also find the event live streamed on our YouTube channel. We look forward to seeing you this Sunday.